All right. Welcome, Ben. Glad to have you here, man. Super excited to talk about Onyx and Amber and all the good things that come along with it. You're raising a storm out there on the West Coast, man. Folks are talking about you over in my way in the Midwest, and I hate that I missed your opening in Kentucky. I was literally down there, and I didn't realize that you. I'm like, how did I miss that? So,
Yeah,
ah,
we did it was a soft launch. I don't even think that we knew exactly how we were going to launch that when we did it. So we were just like, let's just do it and see what happens. Um,
yeah.
but now it's there, and appointment, you make an appointment online through our website, and we we got some really cool stuff down there. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Okay. Super excited for that. So I got a few things here, man, and little show and tell here. So let's talk about these a little bit. The first one that I got was the little bit of lightning 142.1 proof American light whiskey. This is a 20-year predecessor, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first introduction to Onyx and Amber. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so it's called the predecessor for a reason. But basically what we decided to do was off the heels of our award at World Whiskies Awards in February 26, where we won for World's Best American Style Whiskey for our Copper Buffalo. We wanted to put out a batch of American again, but we wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more fun. So what we decided to do was we blended this batch. It yielded like, I don't know, 550 gallons or so. And we cut it into half, right? Half of it we decided to release as is, as unfinished. We didn't touch it. It aged in Colorado for a while, but we didn't touch it. Um, and then the other half we put into buff turkey barrels, and that's currently sitting in the rick house right now. And we'll release that in July or August as the second batch of Copper Buffalo. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to taste what that light whiskey is like completely unfinished, and then what it's like when we put our own spin on it. And what's funny about it is that the batch itself, the little bit of lightning on Breaking Bourbon got 4.5 barrels, which is like kind of unheard of. And so we were like, uh-oh, like it's already really good. What are we going to do? Like, we got to make sure that the finished batch comes out even better. So we're in the lab working right now, checking that thing at all times to make sure that it's doing what we want it to do.
Okay. All right. This is not easy, right?
I know, but you got one of those wax cutters.
I had to.
No, it's
I
it's a
I
it's a
don't want
necessary
to.
evil.
Don't talk about me. Don't judge me here on the first one. This is
Yeah.
pre wax cutter.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil,
It
unfortunately, but
it is, man.
um, we just love the way it looks. And when you cut them with a wax cutter, like you just did, and then you put the top back on later, it still maintains that
Exactly.
finish look. And so um, we're making friends and enemies at the same time.
It's okay. Call them frenemies.
That's
So
right.
I'm lining these up, right? And I'm gonna go by lowest proof to highest.
Yep.
And I know there are nuanced differences, but I'm just gonna let them open up a little bit. That's a fresh crack, obviously. This is the one that you just sent me. I'm very grateful to you and to Isaac for coming up with this creation here. This is Isaac's Happy Corner. Single barrel coming in at 116.2 proof, aged 10 years. That's a sweet spot for me, brother.
Yep. Yep. And I think what's so cool about that product, and I think it speaks to Isaac himself, but also to Onyx and Amber, is we love partnering with folks like him. And one of the reasons why is that, he will come to us with a conversation, an idea of like, hey, I don't want to just put out the same stuff that everybody else puts out, all across the country. He came to us and it was like, I want to be different. I want to be unique. I've got all these ideas. And so we sat together and we kind of worked through some of these ideas, and we settled on this maple turkey, and Isaac is a maple fan. He does his Maple Mondays, and we brought in a fresh maple cask out of Bissell Maple Farms in Ohio, and we put that wild turkey in it and let it sit for 6 months. Um, and the result, as you'll taste, is phenomenal. It maintains its integrity as a wild turkey bourbon, but then gets that little hint from the maple. And I love working with folks like him because I feel like a lot of other places they don't allow these creative influencers or folks who have a following in the industry to express themselves, right? They want to be like, no, you're going to take what we have and you're going to like it. And
Facts.
like, I don't want to do that. I want to be like, no, man, like you have a great idea. Like, let's roll with it. And so
Absolutely.
we're in the lab again right now. Actually, we're working on some other stuff with him for the rest of this year and next year. And again, it's he's got some ideas, and we're just like, yep, let's roll with it. Like, we're gonna see what happens.
Awesome. Awesome. That's exciting, man. Super exciting. I know my boy Brandon has also done some work with you guys. I know he was out there recently
He was,
visiting. Really cool guy. And so it's good to know that folks that I know you and they know
yeah,
what you're doing and they trust you. So I'm working on bringing you to Michigan, right? Hopefully that's
yep,
new territory for you. So I'm working with a few clubs, barrel clubs, as well as a few retailers. Might be easier to get the barrel club started first.
always,
Michigan's a little funky when it comes to distribution. I'll be honest with you.
yeah.
I probably can't say my true thoughts on this platform about it, but nonetheless, I want people here to experience, your creativity, what you have to offer. Now, all three of these are sourced, correct?
Yeah, what's the first one that you have? Remind me. The
So the Owl's Nest, Louisville exclusive.
Cool.
This is the one you just sent. Notice the second one I got. This is the
Yeah.
126.4 8 year.
Yeah, and that one is a really good expression of what Colorado does to sourced whiskey. So that one that you have there, that Louisville exclusive, that one has been or had aged 4 years at MGP and then 4 years in Colorado.
Mm,
So it had 4 heat cycles here, which made a huge difference. So that one's like a really nice representation of the Colorado environment and what it does to source whiskey. And so yes, to answer your question, like everything is sourced. We're not going to ever distill on our own. I don't know how to, and
that's fair.
I don't uh,
You don't want to. That's okay.
I don't want to. Yeah,
It's okay.
and but what we do that I think nobody else does is that we have this environment here in Colorado, and we let that environment take this source whiskey that's already really good and take it to another level. And so when you come to us, you're going to get something. Not only are you going to get something different than what everybody else is doing in the market, but also every time you come to us, you're going to get something different from the last time you came to us. So
Mm,
no two blends will ever be the same. We're not going to be like a, 50,000 bottle blend that goes nationwide of 7 year MGP that we just pumped into a tank and, blended it and sent it
yeah.
out. It's,
Yeah.
it's, it's not our thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not what we want to do.
So you mentioned the heat cycles. I'm very intrigued to know more about the Colorado heat cycles, right? Because, in my mind, I'm thinking it's cold,
Yeah.
right? It's like Michigan.
Yeah.
What people don't realize about Michigan is that we can get all four seasons in a matter of a week,
Yep.
literally. So tell me a little bit about those heat cycles out there in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to what you're saying about Michigan, but I always measure things in heat cycles. So I always want our product to at least hit one heat cycle in Colorado, just because I think that's when the real magic is done. If you think about it, when your barrels are cold, um, the whiskey that's inside the wood actually goes back into the
Mhm.
into the barrel, right? So
Right.
there's not a ton going on. When it's warm, that whiskey's going into the barrel and into the wood and doing its thing. and Colorado has, because we're right off of the mountains here in Denver, we get these crazy barometric pressure swings. Every time that pressure changes, the whiskey and the wood, they start to interact, right? Whiskey
Mm,
going in, whiskey coming out. And so that happens so often here that, like, for example, if you're aging things in Texas, the whiskey kind of goes into the wood and it just chills there, right? And that's why that Texas whiskey comes out and it's so dark. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's really good. Um, but here, it's like in and out, and it's just cycling through.
that push and pull.
Right. And then the other thing that happens here is that because it's dry and we're at altitude, whiskey's obviously, most everyone knows, but whiskey's water and ethanol, right? And so when that whiskey gets into the wood, because it's so dry and we're at altitude, the water escapes into the environment, but the ethanol goes back into the barrel. And what you're left with is kind of a more concentrated and over time higher proof whiskey than you would
Yeah.
under controlled circumstances. And so when you kind of put those two things together, what you end up with is kind of what you'll see in that first expression that you have there, or the second one, I guess, because you're drinking by proof, which you should. But you'll see that in that one, especially because that one was in Colorado for 4 years, whereas the other two, Isaac's was in Colorado for about a year, and the light whiskey was here for a couple of months before we bottled it.
Okay. And for the record, I usually don't drink by proof. My mind always says to go with the highest one, but since I'm here, I'm gonna start with the Isaac's pick, which is the 116.2.
Yeah,
Think of
and I like the concept of going low to high, especially when you're gonna finish at 142. Like, if you went the other way, you're not gonna get the nuance of this barrel, right?
I'd be cooked. Yeah.
You would right away. That's what my son says. That's we were at the hockey game last night, and he was just like, "Dad, I think we're cooked." And I was like, "Yeah, buddy." He's like 10 years old. I'm like, "Okay."
Out of the mouth of babes.
That's right. All day, every day.
Oh, wow. You know what's interesting? I'm a huge turkey fan. Without even knowing, just tasting that, it has that turkey funk that I love,
Yep,
right? I know some
yep.
people hate it, but I love the turkey funk. Um, and I could recognize that immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um when I started Onyx and Amber, my previous experience in the whiskey industry was running a pick club, and we did like 150 picks over like 8 or 9 years. And my favorites were always wild turkey, pre-COVID wild turkey, because you
Yeah.
could go
Yeah.
down there and you could kind of dictate what you wanted. And I am such like a savory, funky, like out of left field wild turkey guy, that like every pick I did with them was just like funkier and funkier than the last. Like you're trying to capture that like 1980s, 1990s wild turkey funk. And I think this one that you're drinking, it puts that out for you a little bit.
It does, but I will say now, knowing the maple influence, I can see but it's sweet, but a savory sweet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, no, exactly.
It's
Yeah,
sweet, but it's not necessarily a confectionery sweet. It's more of a savory sweet, right? It's more body.
yeah. And I have a theory on finishing, especially when you finish with something like maple or vanilla or something like that, which is like you really want to smell it, right? Like on the nose, like you want that bourbon to smell like French toast. But when you drink it, you want to know that it's bourbon, right? Like you don't want it to taste like
Right.
maple syrup. You want it to taste like bourbon with just like a little extra hint of that like sweetness that kind of carries you along to the finish.
Yeah. And it's got a very good long finish too. It's not something that just tapers right off. I mean, it's hanging around for a while.
Yeah, and from a lot of people that I talk to, I think that finish is quickly becoming almost the most important aspect of the pour to them. It's been really interesting as when we get people who come in and they do a barrel pick and they go through a bunch of things. A lot of times the barrels that they turn down or that they move away from are the ones that kind of have a finish that almost like kind of stops, right? Um, and it's this lingering finish, not necessarily a burn, but just a linger that it's there that I think people are really looking for right now. Um,
No, it's interesting that you say that. So I'll tell you what I like. I like a finish that does stop, but then a few seconds later, it goes, I'm back.
yeah,
And you know that experience, right? Where it
yeah,
drops off and then you start talking and you're having a conversation when you're going, oh, hell, man, where did that come from? It came
yeah.
back. It's just like it subtly just kind of settles and then just kind of rises back up. I don't know. I'm weird.
No, I
So,
like that, and we have some willet that is double oaked in Cabernet casks, and the
oh,
double oaking was for like 5 years of the almost 9 years that bourbon has been around, and so you get that like dryness at the end from Cabernet where it like kind of like you said it stops you for a second, but then you go back to doing what you're doing, and then you start to like feel it again and experience it
yeah, it
again. And
comes
so
back.
people, when
Yeah,
they drink it, they're first like, oh, I don't know if what I think about this. And then a couple minutes later, they're like, oh man, like I'm still feeling this one. And you're like, yeah, that's exactly what you were explaining.
absolutely. So I'm going to move now to the owl's nest. So, what are your thoughts on that one?
So this is a classic NGP high rye mash bill, right? And part of what I'm really big on here at Onyx and Amber is transparency. So um, I do not like to sign NDAs if I don't have to, and so we want you as the consumer to know everything about that bourbon that you possibly can. So we will always tell you what it is. I think I've signed one NDA, and that was for something that happened a long time ago. So far so good. But this is a 6036-4 high rye. It's 8 years old. Um, it came to us about 4 years ago, and before obviously this place was open because we've only been open for a year, but we've been collecting barrels for a while, and we just let it age in Colorado. Um, I think the final yield of it was like maybe 86-ish bottles. Um, so you can kind of see Colorado did its work in those 4 years of kind of
Yeah,
pulling that
you got some
together.
hang time here, man.
Yeah, it's concentrated.
You got some
It's
hang time here.
concentrated.
I mean, it's not moving. Like those legs are just staying put. Oh, there they go. All right. Finally.
Yeah, and like that's another thing that I love. I love like a mouthfeel that is like a coating mouthfeel.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are impressed with Colorado is that you get that mouthfeel, the whole experience.
Okay. Distinctly different from Isaac's.
100%.
Night and day. More
Yep.
peppery. More
Rye spice.
pepper. More pepper, right? But not just a dark pepper, almost like a white pepper that you're getting there. Um, you know how pepper can be real sharp?
Yeah.
This one's not as sharp, but it's like I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm a barbecue guy, right? So I own food trucks. I do barbecue. So for me, the spices help me to relate to what I'm used to in the culinary world.
Yeah. And I
Um,
tell people that all the time because I think people are always asking, like, hey, what are your tasting notes on this? What are your tasting notes on that? And I really don't give like full blown tasting notes on a lot of things because of what you just said, right? Which is that as a child in my teen years, whatever it is, like I experienced all these different flavors, right? And I experienced them in the way that I experienced them. And so when I start thinking and I'm drinking something and I'm thinking about how to explain it, all I'm drawing back on are memories of the past, right? It reminds me of this, it reminds me of that. So when I say, for example, um, one of my favorite notes is black cherry cola, right? But like, I'm not talking about cherry Coke from when I was a kid. I'm talking about Dr. Brown's black cherry cola at the deli in New York City, right? Like it's really specific. And so I will always tell people like, this is what I taste, but like, if you don't taste the same thing, like that's cool, man, because like we didn't experience the same thing at the same time, you know? And so I feel you with like with the pepper, but like I don't have that same experience as you, right? So like I
Yeah.
think rye spice. I think baking spice. Um, but peppers are really cool, like almost like a new one for me on that. And like I just really dig hearing that also, you know what I mean?
Don't get me wrong. It's definitely rye, right? It's definitely high rye. Definitely the baking spices, but that pepper, which I like. So one of the other things, I'm a big cigar guy, right? And when I light cigars up, I'm looking for that peppery taste.
Okay.
Even when I pair whiskeys with cigars. So for me, sometimes you know what you like, right? Like you said, Doc Brown, cola is different from,
Yeah.
any of the big brands cherry colas. It's different,
Yep.
right? And, I've had one of those. I want to say those come in the brown bottle, if I'm not, I mean, a brown can.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the brown can, if I'm not mistaken. And it pairs well with with a corned beef or a pastrami sandwich. So
You are not wrong there.
that's my jam, man. I'm a foodie at heart, so
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love a good pastrami on rye.
So this Owl's Nest is again distinctly different from Isaac's. I'm enjoying it. Um, you can definitely tell that it's a little bit warmer on the palate, right? It's
Yeah.
126.4 proof, 8 years, so a little bit younger, higher proof. Um, higher rye mash bill. Definitely enjoying this. I'm assuming you said this is Indiana
MGP, yeah.
distilled, so it's Indiana distilled. Okay,
Yeah.
so I like it a lot though, man. This is something that I could sip. That's a good place for me. It doesn't drink like 126 or 127 proof. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very approachable. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in Colorado try to use the gimmick of like, the altitude or whatever, it makes things age faster. And I don't like that concept because 7 years or 8 years is 8 years, right? Like you can't change time, you can't bend time. What I tell people when we have that conversation is like, I think that the environment lends something to the whiskey that allows it to kind of drink above its age, is what I would say. So sometimes you get a 7 or an 8 year from Colorado and it tastes in your mind like, oh, this is a 10 year or whatever. But you know, if you go back to COVID, you know, nobody had 7 year or 8 year whiskey on the market. Like everything was 4 or 5 years old. If someone had a six, that was amazing. And now we're at the point where like a lot of whiskeys, especially sourced whiskeys, are double digits now. But sometimes we forget that like a 7 or an 8 year whiskey can still be like really, really good. And we're gonna
absolutely,
find out
that's a sweet
again.
spot for me, man. That's a
Yeah.
sweet spot for me. I love a 8-year bourbon. That's a sweet spot for me.
It's a
That
great place.
Oh, it's a good place to hang out, man.
Yeah.
But
And we're gonna find out again soon.
you said something
Yes.
that really struck me just now, though, about the double digits, and that's actually a great segue, man. I'm sitting here eyeballing this American light whiskey, right? It's old.
It's old.
It's old, and
It's
I'm
old.
sitting here eyeballing it, right, as you're saying that, and I'm looking at it going, 20-year predecessor. Wow, 142.1 proof. So I recently went down to MGP to do a pick for a local retailer here in Michigan. So I got to go to MGP. We were actually the first group from Michigan to set foot on, those sacred grounds, right?
That's awesome.
And I got to see that. And you look up, and the first thing you see is you see Seagrams on the wall, right?
Yep.
And the first thing that comes to mind is American light whiskey.
Yep.
In my mind, right? Doing the research that I've done is Seagrams. And I know that a lot of American light whiskey that we're seeing, especially in double digits, is Seagrams. So I'd love to know more about this last one here, man. This little bit of lightning.
Yeah, and Seagram's is a cool. It's an awesome story, right? Seagram's got acquired by MGP. These barrels came with. Um, American light whiskey is definitely popular right now, and people always ask like, "Hey, when is that popularity going to end?" And like my theory is it ends when the whiskey goes back to being 15 years or younger, because American light whiskey needs time to overcome the its faults, right? And its faults are that it's 99% corn and that it's got a high entry proof. And so if you drink an American light whiskey at 7 or 8 years old, all you're going to taste is grain. When you get to 12, 13, 14, 15, now you start to taste maybe like some butterscotch or some things like that, but it can still be really one note. And when you get to that like 17, 18, 19, 20 is when it starts to round out and you can start to pick up on other flavor notes um, that put you on a roller coaster. So with this one in particular, um, we just felt like we had made a really nice blend that took the edge off of kind of the one noteness of the American light whiskey and allowed it to have almost like some fruit forward notes in it. Change it up a little bit. That butterscotch is still there for sure, but it's rounded out by these like beautiful fruit notes that kind of um, take you on a different journey than you normally get from a light whiskey.
Yeah.
And people are coming around like non whiskey drinkers. When we get people in the tasting room, they're like, I don't even know. I've never heard of an American light whiskey. And you taste them on that. And they usually leave with a bottle because they're like, I had no idea that
Yeah.
whiskey could taste like that. And so, um, this is one of my favorite offerings. And I think that at times it drinks better than the award winning Copper Buffalo that we had, which was an 18-year-old light whiskey. So, um, there's some good things going on in there.
I love the nose. So one of the things that I've discovered with American light whiskeys is strong floral notes
Hmm. That's true.
and a lot of and the fruit, but it's not the dark fruit.
No,
It's more of the citrus, right? It's more of the light fruits, the citrus versus the stone fruit and darker fruits. At least that's what I pick up when I get American light whiskey.
sometimes like green apple.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so to kind of segue from that into what Copper Buffalo is, right? Copper Buffalo is American light whiskey that is finished for 4 to 6 months in ex buff turkey barrels, right? And those buff turkeys have that like really heavy black cherry, vanilla, soda notes. And so when you take that and you put the light whiskey in it, then that's when you start to see those like bold red fruits come forward, and it almost tastes like it's a mix between a bourbon and a light whiskey, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really fun too. So you'll get a bottle of the Copper Buffalo here once we bottle it in August. And it'll be really fun we'll have to jump back on and have you side by
Absolutely.
side those and
Yeah.
give your thoughts.
I like what you just said though. It's like a myriad, right? Like when you talk about the fruitfulness and the brightness of the American light whiskey, and then those dark notes from that cask for the bourbon, it's kind of like we're here, and then you're pulling it back to the dark side, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
for me, that's exciting because it's a balance. Again, you talked about earlier those swings. I think that also can exist with the different casks. Like,
Mhm.
is that something that you look for when you're picking barrels, right? When you're buying a lot of barrels, when you're picking them, does barrel influence have anything to do with your decision making when you're buying these barrels?
Yes and no. I would say that the way that it's kind of set up is that you're not going to be able to taste every single barrel that you pull in.
Absolutely.
But I think what we do a really good job of and what we know really well is where that particular barrel is in its cycle, right? So if you think about a barrel cycle, you have peaks and you have valleys, right? And so sometimes you can get a barrel and it's 10 years, let's say, but it's sitting in a valley and it's not there yet, right? Like it's flat or it's one note or something. And if you have the patience to let it sit for a while, eventually the chemistry will change and it'll come out of that valley and it'll peak again. And then you'll have like a prime single barrel, right? but you have to understand the way that the science works inside of those barrels to understand that like you didn't buy a bad barrel, right? You just need to give it time to get out of the current stage of the cycle that it's in. Um, and we have some really great barrels right now that are 11 years old that are Canton cooperage. And when we first got them, they were in like the low of that valley. Like we were like, oh boy, like this is not what we want. They tasted almost like sawdusty, right? But the answer wasn't let's put it into a blend and try to mask it, or let's finish it and try to mask it. The answer was let's just have patience. It'll come out of that cycle. And it did. And when it did, it bloomed, and we sold a bunch of those barrels recently, and people are really enjoying them.
So is it fair to say that in this industry, patience is key?
Patience is the patience is the I think there are two factors that will make you really successful as an NDP. Number one is creativity. You have to find a way to be different than everybody else. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing as everybody else. And so what makes you stand out to some of these incredible NDPs like Nashville Barrel Company, or Rare Character, or Short Barrel, who are doing really great things. Like if you just copy what they're doing, you're not going to be able to do it as good as they can, right? And so you got to have creativity. But on the same note,
It's going toe to toe, right? Just
yeah,
going toe to toe. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
get
it
it.
just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, but then on the other side of it is that whole concept of patience, and we tell people all the time, like when we started Onyx and Amber, like our original plan was to release like 6 barrels a year. We were going to contract bottle out of somebody else's warehouse, and the whole thing just kind of snowballed into kind of where we're at now. We're doing 20 something barrels a month, um, and but in that, nothing leaves the the warehouse for samples or for anything without us tasting it, and myself tasting it and going, this is ready to go. Like if
So
I'm
it's
drinking
quality
something,
control. Quality
yeah.
control.
Cause like think about this, right? Like I'm sitting at home in October. I've got the Broncos and Chiefs on the tube, and I'm gonna reach for a whiskey, right? If that whiskey that I'm thinking about selling to a group or putting it into my single barrel program, if I look at that and I taste it and I go, nah, I wouldn't reach for that, then like, why would I sell it? Like it obviously needs more time, right? And so every time that something goes into our barrel program, it's me tasting it and being like, yeah, I drink this, right? Like that's as simple as it is. It's just like, yeah, I would drink this. I think this is good. And if it's like, oh, I don't think I would drink that, then I'm like, okay, cool. We'll deal with
And
it later.
I respect that about you. That if you're not going to drink it, why do you want to subject others to it?
Yeah.
That's
Right. Like,
important, right? I'm the same way with barbecue, man. Like, and don't get me wrong, I've done thousands of briskets in my career of cooking food for others. And my first few years, yeah, I've messed up a few briskets and I've
of
thrown them
course,
away and I've
of
thrown them
course,
away,
of course.
you know?
And you're still going to have people who, at least especially in the whiskey world, who are going to be like, yeah, I didn't think that release was that great. Like you're never going
Yeah.
to just because I enjoy it doesn't mean that everyone's going to enjoy it. And
Facts.
you can't have an ego about that. Like if somebody comes to you and they're like, "Hey, this was good, but like it's not my favorite," or like, "Hey, this wasn't
Yeah.
very good." Um, you just got to kind of go back and sit down and be like, "Okay, cool." Like, you know,
I had someone
I
tell me that recently about a PX Sherry pick that I did. They said, it's good, but it's not my jam. Well, PX Sherry is not your jam. I get it,
yep, yep,
right? I've
yeah.
never
Like
been crazy about port finishes.
not everyone's gonna like everything you put out. Not everyone's gonna
Yeah.
like everything you cook. Not everyone's gonna like everything you say. Um, but you know, you control as the person who is behind the smoker, the person who's in the barrel house every day. Like you control what you put out in front of people. And so if you know that what you're putting out is your best effort, or what you're putting out is something that you enjoy, then I think you can sit back and say, like, yeah, I'm doing it the right way, you know? And we've done it before, man. We've dumped full barrels of whiskey that we thought were beyond saving. And
Wait,
you
wait,
just
wait,
say,
wait, wait,
like,
wait, wait, wait. So you're saying a full barrel, like a drain pour? You had a drain
100%.
barrel?
Yeah, I've had so far in the last year, I've had 4
Oh, wow.
where they just were like,
No blending, no anything. You're done.
no, no, because you're like, it would screw up a blend. You can't finish it. And I don't like to. Like, all of our finishes are with high quality single barrels. Like, that's what I want, right? But sometimes you have stuff where you're just like, even time won't help this. It's over oaked, it's too tannic, it's just toast. And you just have to be like, all right, this is part of the game. And you just, and I've had people who are like, oh, you should have called me. Like, I would have come and picked that up and I would have drank it. And I'm like, I don't want my name on it. like, like, it's just not good. And so, you know, you again, you gotta do right by people.
Oh, that's cool, man. So I couldn't help but notice also, you've done over 150 single barrel selections in your career before you got into the whiskey game as an NDP.
Yeah.
But I also noticed something about charity, and you've raised over $500,000 for charity, man. That just really, pricked my heart when I saw that.
Thanks, man. I mean, we hit
Yeah.
a point with that group, with that barrel picking group, where it was like, hey, like, we're just a bunch of dudes who sit around and pick barrels and drink, and like, that's really fun. But like, let's use this platform to do something. And so um we did a couple of real big charity collaborations with Chef Ed Lee out of Louisville, Kentucky. Um who's who was on Top Chef a long time ago, came back to judge it a bunch. Like, really great guy, has a great foundation. And so our first big thing we did with him was during COVID, where we donated over $100,000 to basically provide meals for restaurant workers who couldn't work anymore. And so we did that with him. We went down to Kentucky. We did a couple of barrel picks at Sazerac, um, and donated all you know, the proceeds to his charity. And I think it's a really big deal, and it's something that here at Onyx and Amber, like, we continue to do. I don't know. Do you know Luis Martinez from Whiskey Valor?
I don't.
Okay, you should look him up. He's a
Okay.
great guy. He runs a great foundation. We do a lot of partnership with him. So they have a what's called their ride share initiative, where they're providing Ubers for veterans,
Yeah.
for when they go out, and they have this this program, which is like it's a zero DUI program. Like, we don't want to see any veterans. We don't want to see anybody picking up DUIs. So um, we work alongside him. We just did a light whiskey barrel with him where we donated profits to the rideshare initiative.
That's awesome.
Um, we're going on Saturday night to a an event in Washington D.C. called Merging Vets and Players, and it's a foundation that basically helps veterans and ex athletes re-enter civilian life after their
Okay.
careers are over.
Yeah.
And so we're really big on supporting our troops. We're really big on donating to things like that. It's still a big piece of our fabric,
That's
if that
awesome,
makes
man.
sense.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm in total agreement with that. Community is something that is very important to me and very huge in my life. In one of my fraternal organizations, I'm actually the director of community relations for the organization internationally. So each year we travel to a different state to host our annual convention. It just so happens we're in my hometown this year, but last year we were in Philadelphia, the year before that, Milwaukee, and the year before that, we were in Denver.
Hmm.
And we're going to be going to Portland in a few years. So every year, my goal as the director of community relations, I look for a local opportunity to support and give back. right? So that's huge for me, man. You hit the nail on the head with the work that you're doing. Kudos to you, man. I'm looking at your core values here: transparency, respect, patience, integrity, and discovery, man. And all of those are important, not just in whiskey, but just in life. Just in
Yeah, I
life.
mean, it's something that seems so simple, but I think can be very hard for a lot of folks, and you know, it's just it's a uh, good pillars to live by in general. Exactly like you're saying.
Absolutely.
Be
Absolutely.
transparent, tell the truth. People want to know what they're eating. People want to know what they're drinking. People,
Yeah,
you know, they deserve to know these things.
I
Um,
agree
and in
wholeheartedly.
the whiskey world, it allows you as a consumer to decide what you like. So if I know exactly what I'm drinking, then I can form an opinion on what I'm drinking. If you don't tell me, then I'm like, oh, I really like this, but like I don't know what it is. Like how can I further
Yeah.
discover if I'm not getting all the information?
No, I agree, man. I appreciate and respect your transparency.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
huge for real.
Thanks.
So, last question for you, Ben. What's next for Onyx and Amber and Ben Rosen? What's next?
Honestly, we've had crazy growth, so we're trying to just kind of stay in front of that. But the whole purpose of Onyx and Amber is with everything that we've got going on and the attention we're getting and um, whether it's the awards or just overall good vibes from the community, we just want to. What's next is just to keep doing what we're doing, right? We don't want to be known as that company that came out guns blazing, great whiskey, and then all of a sudden, a year and a half later, we're offering you things that aren't good anymore. So the whole point is for us to really just maintain our commitment to patience and quality and transparency, and just kind of let that run its course on its own.
Yeah,
Um, and honestly, for me, I just love doing things like this. Like this is what gets me. I tell people all the time, when you send us a DM on Instagram, you're actually talking to me.
this is
If you
very true.
send an email to us, the
Yeah,
contact, you're talking to me, and it's not
yeah,
because of anything except for the fact that I just love doing it.
yeah.
I love interacting with people. I love making people happy. Um, and I love doing things like this, like having conversations with people who are on the same wavelength as me, and allowing ourselves to create a new relationship and a new bond between people that like I you and I would have never met any other way, you know,
I'll
and
tell
that
you what, my good friend Kevin, because bourbon, he
sure
always says it's because of bourbon that we're connected. And for me, I'm very grateful for this whiskey community, the relationships that I have forged and I am forging, right? We're connected. We're going to
continuing
stay
to.
connected. Yeah, absolutely. And it's because of whiskey. I think when you drink responsibly and you build those partnerships and relationships, man, they'll go a long way.
Yeah,
They go a
I
long way.
completely agree. And some of my favorite nights of my entire life have been something that I have done with other folks surrounding whiskey. And I'm not talking about drinking a half a bottle. I'm talking about
Yeah,
sitting, and connecting with people and having a pour or maybe two, but just connecting with people and experiences that otherwise I don't think I would have had.
absolutely, man. Cheers to that. Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate, your generosity. And I look forward to doing a few barrel picks with you. We got to get the inaugural one done for here in
Yeah.
Michigan. So we'll be in touch very soon. Again, I'm working with a few different clubs. So start thinking about me and what could reel it in for me. You know that I'm in the culinary game. I'm a barbecue guy. So, a little spice wouldn't be bad for me in there.
I,
So,
I got the wheels turning already.
all right. Good deal, man. We'll talk soon. I appreciate you, man. Until next time.
All
Cheers.
right. Cheers.